Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Geraghty of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
So glad you are with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. And boy, did you pick a great day to be with us, because Jim Geraghty is back from Ukraine and additional adventures, which included Syria, which we did not know, at least I didn't, before the trip. And
Nobody
Jim,
knew. Nobody knew, Greg. When we do our special episode later this week, the first question from Greg is going to be, what the hell were you thinking? You know, and yeah. Hey, look, also breaking news in this podcast. I'm still on this show. I understand if people had doubts over the last 2 weeks, and Inez and Andy and ex-John had taken over, and God bless them for filling in for me. But yes, I'm back and not itching to travel anymore for a good long while.
Jim is suddenly a homebody, and we'll learn a lot more about that later in the week on our special. But yes, thank you to Inez Stepman and Andy McCarthy, Scott Bertram, and John Gabriel for filling the gap in Jim's absence. But we are back, and we will have that special episode most likely on Friday of this week. But today we have good, bad, and crazy martinis about last night's major speech. Not officially a State of the Union. For some reason, they don't give it that title in the first the first few weeks of the president's administration. But it was essentially a State of the Union address. It was very, very long, much like the convention speech. So I really wish they would tighten that up. But as you wrote today, Jim, at this point with Trump, that's probably not likely to happen. But there were good, bad, and crazy moments all around here. So let's start with the good. I think two moments really stood out. I try to approach the speech from someone who's not locked in from either perspective. And I think there were two moments that definitely worked well for Trump, in addition to all the amazing people in the gallery. Those are always pleasant with the audience at home. But first of all, this line, when it came to the immense improvement on illegal crossings at our southern border in the month of February, the first full month under Trump administration control.
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
Democrats don't like that, but it's true. And as you pointed out in the Morning Jolt today, Jim, the Democratic fact checkers really had to scramble to try to come up with an argument that wasn't entirely true. And then the other thing that I thought stood out was Trump maybe went on a little longer than he needed to, but spending time talking about the insanity that DOJ has dug up and how our tax dollars are wasted.
Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
So if you're middle class, Jim, and you're seeing that's what's happening with your tax dollars, you know, it makes your blood boil. But that's the kind of plain speech that endears folks to Trump, and the message gets through, obviously. So you've got a column coming up on the border issue. So what do you think about those moments and anything else that you thought was particularly strong for him last night?
Well, Greg, you alluded to how long the speech was. I'm not going to say it was too long. Castro said it dragged on a bit. And in that time of Trump's speech, I was able to visit 3 more war zones. That's how long the speech was. But look, and for those who think that I am this, reflexive critic of the president, he absolutely is entitled to take a victory lap on illegal immigration. You alluded to this, and as I wrote today, so he said it was the lowest ever, right? It's not the lowest border crossings ever. CNN said it's the lowest since the early 60s. Oh, so since JFK was chasing the interns, that's how long it's been since we've had that small a number of people attempting to cross the border. We saw something similar in Trump's first term, where it immediately went down, kind of slowly, gradually creep back up again for, not as high as it had been, but, creep back up. COVID happens and it drops back down again. What we saw in February might not continue, but if it does, it would be, if we have every month for the rest of this year is comparable to February, I ran the numbers, it would be the lowest since 1968. And as we all know, in 1968, the Jets won the Super Bowl. So that's the guy who won the Super Bowl, MVP, is pitching you Medicaid Advantage plans on Fox News commercials. Like, that's how long it's been since we've had something like this. And so, look, there are a lot of cases where Trump brags and it's kind of, not lining up with the facts. But on this one, it's 1 month. We'll see if this trend continues. But it kind of feels like the issue of illegal immigration or people trying to sneak across the border, if it's not solved, it's very close to solved. And it is very clear the demonstration, no, we didn't need to pass the legislation. No offense to Lankford and all those folks who are working on it. What we needed was a president who said, we absolutely intend to force the law, and I will froth at the mouth, and this is my highest priority, and everybody knows that I am crazily obsessed with this issue. And they believe him. When Kamala Harris goes down to Guatemala and says, do not come, nobody believes her, because I think there were enough mixed messages coming from the Biden administration that they said they were going to enforce the law, but they weren't going to give the resources and all that kind of stuff. Immigration, clearly, there are a lot of areas where I will dispute whether the administration has early triumphs. This is an early triumph. And yes, I think it's kind of ridiculous that we call the first one the joint address of Congress, but the idea is that, well, you haven't been in office long enough to talk about the State of the Union. I think Trump has. I think Trump, you could say that Trump is, he has already enacted a whole bunch of changes. And I'm not a fan of all of them, but on this one, what was, let's say, the second most important issue in last year's election, instant results. It is absolutely one where the president and Republicans can look and say, look, we brought in a new attitude. We gave them the resources. We made very clear we were going to prioritize this, and people stopped coming. And I think there'll be a lot of Americans who are really pleased to hear that.
No, I think that's exactly right. And he mentioned it a couple different times. That one obviously had a completely
19 times, I checked. 19 times he mentioned the border. But when you speak for nearly 2 hours, you're going to get in there quite a few times.
Exactly. Now, that one, of course, had a legitimate shot at Joe Biden, so the Democrats didn't like that one. But even when he mentioned it early on in the speech, they were sitting on their hands. How can you be opposed to a massive reduction in illegal border crossings? It's just crazy. And he said at the very beginning, and we can talk about this in the Crazy Martini as well, these people over here, no matter what I do, they're never going to clap for me. And that was one of the issues that absolutely proved that to be the case last night. So that and Doge and a lot of the stories that led to policies like the Lake and Riley Act, her family was there, and so forth, of a girl who suffered traumatic brain injury because of a male athlete identifying as a girl hitting a volleyball in her face. These are real issues. They put real faces to the issues that the Democrats always like to say isn't actually happening and so forth. So well done on that front for sure. All right, let's talk about good news for your small business. You just don't know what's coming necessarily. You want to be as ready as possible for that, and that's where NetSuite by Oracle comes in, because for more than 38,000 businesses, they've future-proofed their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, the leading cloud ERP platform. It integrates key business functions like accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one seamless system.
With a unified business management suite, NetSuite provides one source of truthful information. It gives you complete visibility and control and enables you to make quick, informed decisions based on real-time data. Closing your books in days and not weeks means you spend less time on your past reports and more time focusing on future growth. This efficiency lets you shift your attention from historical tasks to the strategic initiatives that will drive your business forward.
If there's a way, a trustworthy way to let this technology take some of those items off your plate, you need to do it, and there's no better way to do it than NetSuite by Oracle. I speak with small business owners and small business experts, and they say, find reliable tools to get that work done for you so you can focus on what you need to be focusing on. And if I needed this product, it would certainly be NetSuite by Oracle. In addition to that, you can download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/martini. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/martini. That's netsuite.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini. And for that, we head to the president's focus on tariffs last night in his speech. Jim writes about this a lot as well in today's Morning Jolt, but we've talked about tariffs many times before. But Trump was not only pointing out that the Canada and Mexico tariffs are now in effect as of this month, but more is coming in terms of reciprocal tariffs. So whatever other countries charge us, that's what we're going to charge them. Here's how he laid that out in a couple of different clips.
April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them.
And then he had a special message for the farmers, which also included some language that a lot of Americans might want to be ready for.
The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers, starting on April 2nd, it may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases, and I said, just bear with me, and they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again, and this will be even better.
Well, we'll find out if it's better. But Jim, you've written about this at length. We've talked about this at length, and the way the markets are responding. It's definitely going to be a volatile time. It's just a question of how long that lasts and how much grace, if any, the American voter and the Americans who are potentially seeing higher prices in many different areas over the coming weeks and months are going to have patience for this policy.
Yeah, if immigration is good Trump, I think the tariff discussion and the effect it's having on the economy and markets is very much bad Trump. In addition to those two quotes, another portion of the address to Congress, Trump said, tariffs are about making America rich again and make America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There will be a little disturbance, but we are okay with that. Are we? I do not think the message from the American people at the last election was, we are just fine with a little disturbance. We are just, it's perfectly okay. Cost of living and inflation drove a stake into the heart of the Biden presidency. And it's not just like Trump saying this. As I spotlighted in the Jolt, Republicans in Capitol Hill who have to defend this. Mark Alford of Missouri said, we all have a role to play in this to right-size our government, and if I have to pay a little bit more for something, I'm all for it to get America right again, to start whittling down this $36 billion or trillion worth of debt that we have that's sustainable. First of all, it's trillion with a TR, not a B. Let's keep clear on that. Secondly, you're not going to tariff your way out of a $35 trillion debt. We didn't get into this overnight. We got into this over the course of decades. You want to bring that debt down. If you want to get it to zero, it's going to take decades. You can, hopefully make some serious progress year by year. But there's that. And of course, there's Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, interviewed by CNN. He says, of course, he's worried tariffs could impact his state, but he argued that his constituents are willing to do what it takes to support the president's policy. Let's check back on that in weeks, months. I'm not so sure that's a safe bet at all. And I don't remember Republicans running in 2024 on elect us. Prices are going to get a little bit higher. You're going to be okay with it. Are they going to be okay with it? I think there was this sense that, no, you're going to get in there and you're going to eliminate all this bad spending. And we're going to have the inflation, which was at that point close to 2%, but not quite down there, was going to go below 2% or be around 2%. And inflation would go away, would go away as a factor in American life. The ag issue, that's mostly bird flu, but it also may have some bad policies that it's something exacerbated the effects of that. We're heading towards spring and summer when people drive more. Gas prices traditionally go up then, and we just put a new tariff on gas from Canada. I don't know if Americans are going to be, we're fine with this. This is okay. And look, should we be demanding more from Mexico and Canada on fentanyl? Yeah, that's a perfectly good dispute. But as the lesson of this of the Biden years was, don't let inflation happen. Because once it starts, it's very hard to get under control. I hear people saying, Jim, tariffs aren't inflationary because they're not really increasing the money supply. Okay, accurate enough, but you're making prices higher, right? Whether or not you're devaluing the dollars you have, it makes more expensive. And this is going to affect people's lives, businesses, in so many different ways. You might be looking at, your local burger joint or burrito joint. Well, they don't, have to worry about any of this stuff because they get all their materials locally. Well, if they wrap it in aluminum foil, apparently we are the world's largest importer of aluminum foil, and we just enacted a 25% tariff on aluminum. So the prices of that, do you think we're taking aluminum foil from overseas because it's better quality? Aluminum foil is pretty much aluminum foil. It's because it's cheaper. Well, now it's not cheaper. So maybe we'll buy American. But also the consequences your burrito or your burger are going to cost because it costs more for the business to buy the aluminum foil that they're wrapping your burger or burrito in. The consequences of this are going to be felt. They're going to be felt pretty darn fast. And I do not think the American people are like, yes, higher prices, give me more of that.
Yeah, he's got a few months at the most for this to play out positively in his direction. And certainly by this time next year, If it's considerably higher, that's going to spell big-time trouble for the Republicans in the midterms. He did talk about tariffs in the campaign because he had obviously done tariffs to some extent in the previous time he was president. And at that point, the inflation did not jump. So I don't think people expected it to be that big of an issue. But we'll find out in very short order here what impact this has, because that time I think it was mainly with China. This now is going to be reciprocal basically with everyone we trade with, it sounds like. And so that's a much bigger, more impactful policy.
And let's point out, Trump gets elected, the stock market boomed. November, December, January were all great months for the stock markets. Largely, I think, because the business community is like, well, Trump talks a lot about tariffs, but he's not really going to do them. Well, here we are, and he's actually doing them. And all of the post-election day stock market gains were wiped out yesterday. Could they turn it around? Sure. The markets can be very volatile. Are there other factors affecting the market? Sure. But somebody tried to argue with me that tariffs have nothing to do with the drop in the stock market Tuesday. And I'm sorry, I'm just not buying that, pal. That is definitely a factor in business thinking. Businesses like stability and predictability, and there's nothing stable. They also aren't big fans on supply chain costs getting more expensive, which is what tariffs do. So we'll see how things shake out. But very ominous rumblings. There's a very ominous noise in the engine of the American economy right now.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was a little bit cryptic yesterday, saying he might have something to announce today. I don't know what that is. But, of course, there is a history of, here's your tariffs. Okay, we've made a deal. We're not going to keep going with this, at least for now. So we'll see. We'll see if he actually has something to announce today and whether it's significant. All right, well, here's something that is fantastic, and that is Omaha Steaks. They've been America's original butcher for more than 100 years, and I can tell you, Jim can tell you, when you get that Omaha Steaks package on your porch, you know you are in for some good eating, whether it's the steaks, which are so soft, USDA certified tender, mind you, the fantastic burgers, which are a great size, great flavor, and then you cook them up exactly how you like them. And right now you can subscribe at omahasteaks.com/3ML and get 12 free Omaha Steaks burgers in every shipment. That's a $431 per year value, plus you'll get an extra $10 off and free shipping for the life of your subscription. As I just mentioned earlier this week, whenever Mrs. Columbus says the Omaha Steaks or the burgers or the hot dogs are on the menu, I get excited. The kids love it. They got great sides with the fries and everything else. And you can inflation-proof your grocery bill because your offer and your price when you subscribe to Omaha Steaks are locked in for the life of your subscription. So make life easier by subscribing to the best. Subscribe to Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com/3ML and get 12 free burgers and free shipping for the life of your subscription, plus an extra 10% off today and on every subsequent subscription shipment. omahasteaks.com/3ML. All right, John. All right, Jim, on to our crazy...
That's a sign I've been away for a long time. That's okay, Rich.
All right,
look,
Jim.
This show has two hosts, two people. Usually it's Jim and Greg, but it could be any two people. And do the names matter? Probably not.
On to the crazy martini now, which there was plenty of last night. Trump was certainly in a combative mood. The Democrats were from even before the get-go. I think this is the first State of the Union type speech, Jim, where I just saw the opposition party not stand up when he entered the room, not applaud at any point. It was just absolute opposition from the get-go. They also had these kind of auction paddles. So when they didn't have an outburst, it would say, Elon's stealing from us or save Medicaid or something. That was a big mistake because now the conservatives are memeing that and putting other things on their paddles that they're spreading around of like, I don't support, girls in sports and I love illegals and all that kind of stuff. So be careful what your tactics are. Perhaps the Democrat that got the most attention last night was Al Green of Texas, who is fond of filing articles of impeachment that go nowhere. He stood up right after Trump said he was given a mandate by the American people and then wouldn't stop talking. Eventually, he had to be taken out of the House chamber. I've never seen that for an actual member of Congress during one of these speeches. As we mentioned earlier, Trump saying, these people will never cheer for anything, and they didn't. No matter what inspirational story was in the gallery, no matter what policy that the vast majority of Americans might support, the Democrats just sat there. It didn't get any better afterwards. Alyssa Slotkin gave an okay response. Of course, because Trump went so long, she was out of prime time and competing with local news, and most people don't pay attention to the response anyway. Over at MSNBC, however, two of the hosts over there had weird reactions to one moment in particular, Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace. There's this guy, DJ Daniel, a kid, 13 years old, who's been fighting cancer since he was 6, wants to be a police officer, who's in his uniform there, super proud, and Trump made him an honorary member of the Secret Service, and the new director came and gave him his credentials, and the kid jumped up and hugged the Secret Service director, which seems like a pretty innocent moment, but no. Rachel Maddow somehow claims that Trump was taking credit for the fact that the kid had beaten cancer to this point. I'm not sure where she got that from. And then Nicole Wallace went even further off the rails.
I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer, but I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. And I hope he isn't one who has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people.
Everything has to fit in the narrative somehow. Jim, so what'd you make of the Democrats' temper tantrum last night?
So first of all, Greg, it's fine to play quotes from MSNBC, but I didn't even watch any of the post speech coverage. I just don't see any point in watching MSNBC because the whole time I'm thinking, what does Joy Reid think? It just didn't feel complete without someone there to say, yes, this was a very racist speech. Secondly, if Slotkin gave her response any later, it would have been on Morning Joe. I noticed, we talk about, will they ever give credit? She said we should, it was a very vague, almost praising, that we should be checking the background of everyone who tries to enter this country. But we won't, the border security is treating the symptom, not the disease. And the only solution for the disease is comprehensive immigration reform. And I looked at that and I was like, it's like nothing changed on Election Day. They learned nothing. Because we know you and I hear the words comprehensive immigration reform, and there's this voice saying, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger! That is code word for amnesty." And so it's going to be a really cold day in HE double hockey sticks before Republicans yeah, sign me up for that comprehensive immigration reform. And here we are, and as I discussed in the first one, it's not quite that all the issue of illegal immigration has been solved, but a giant step has been taken. And you think you could sell an amnesty bill now? Really? No, you cannot. So that was kind of baffling. Overall, I think it's... Oh, and also earlier in the week, Hakeem Jeffries said that Trump had stirred up all this xenophobia. I haven't seen this kind of play calling since Adam Gase. This is, where the first running it up the middle on first down did not work. Second down, we're going to do the exact same thing because, hey, they never expect it. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. And I think you see, just generally from Democrats on Capitol Hill, they're really not used to being in the minority. They're really not used to being in a situation where they don't have any leverage in either one of the legislative chambers or a Democratic president. Normally, in these circumstances, you start looking at the Republicans in the House and the small majority that they have, and you're like, okay, are there 5 guys who we can pick off to agree with us on certain stuff? And you have to try, you start tailoring your arguments to a moderate Republican to say this proposal from the president is going to harm the country, blah, blah. And as we discussed on tariffs, there's room for this, right? Instead, they are still playing to their base that wasn't enough to win a presidential election, wasn't in the right states to help them in the Senate. And oh, by the way, things are not looking great for 2026. We'll see. That's a long ways away, but they had some really not so great retirements, and everybody's kind of watching Jean Shaheen to see if she's going to go another term. And yeah, they're close in the House, but Houston area Congressman Sylvester Turner just died apparently either late last night, early this morning. God rest his soul. By the way, this was Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, so she died in office. It's a very strange sort of circumstance there. So now by traditional standards, starting April 1st after the 2 special House elections in Florida, Republicans will have a huge majority of 5 or 6 seats. So that's great. That's, by recent standards, that's a big majority. So they had you don't, the old playbook is not going to work right here, and they are just they don't seem to be willing to make the changes there. And to try to adjust their strategy. And I don't see any reason why you'd get different results from this. So kind of fascinating to watch Democrats who have always had the media at their back, who have always had all kinds of structural advantages, flailing so desperately in these circumstances. And I would just point out for Al Green, I don't want to say shut up and sing, but did getting thrown out of the State of the Union do you any good? Yeah, I think even Joe Wilson would say that's going a little too far.
Depends how much fundraising he got out of it, I guess. That was the whole point, I'm pretty sure. And apparently a lot of other members ducked out at various times to film videos that their staff could put up online. So it's turning into reality TV, which, Trump's no stranger to that either. So it's quite a different era than it was
Greg, I just wish we could go back to the civil, high-minded, better days when all we had to deal with was Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech behind Trump.
It's performance arts in so many different ways. So we will see what happens next. Jim, great to have you back. See you tomorrow.
Good to be back. See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Geraghty, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for subscribing to the podcast. Please encourage your friends to do so as well. We'd love to have them listening. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. They are a huge help to us. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Geraghty. I'm at Greg Corombos. Have a great Wednesday and join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.